The best of Money Matters. Right Business.
Welcome to The Right Business, where we dive deep into the stories of trailblazers who dare to disrupt the status quo, find the gap in the market to find the right business. Hello, I'm Hongbin Jeong. Now, if you're an older or senior worker, you might be wondering what options there are to continue your career journey. That's because many older workers find it difficult to get work because although we would like to pretend that there is no age discrimination, sad to say, there is. Now, our next guest is looking to change that perspective. Kai Ning Lim is a co-founder of the Courage Chapter, a pioneering platform that's reshaping how we think about senior professionals in the workforce. In a world where we're all aging, the Courage Chapter is empowering mature workers to transition into fulfilling second careers. And they are doing this by connecting mature workers with flexible, impactful projects that drive business success. So how is the Courage Chapter changing the future of work for the better? Well, joining us today to tell us more is Kai Ning Lim, who is a co-founder at the Courage Chapter. Hi, Kai Ning. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Hongbin.
All right, Kai Ning, I just want to start off the interview by asking you, what were the key moments in your personal life that, inspired you to create the Courage Chapter?
Well, I have a HR background by training. In my university days, I started a social initiative to help job seekers to better their career prospects through improving their resumes. But I think there was one incident that really struck me, right? I was helping a senior professional in his 50s to do up his profile. But he told me that, no matter how nicely I do up his resume, employers would still not hire him because of his age.
Right.
That incident really struck me quite hard, right? Because I was quite young back then and very idealistic. So I always thought that, if we make up our own, we make up our own fates through individual effort and our own prerogative, right? Like if I were to upskill and communicate my value properly, I would make sure that my career would go on very successfully and well. But then I realized that actually it takes two hands to clap. Companies also need to open up their doors to seniors and also learn how to leverage their expertise. And I think the mission became even more personal when one of my loved ones had an early retirement. So I kind of watched, as he experimented and found his groove in, moving from full-time work to being unemployed to then going to part-time work, right? So he found his groove in adjunct lecturing and helping out a friend's business 3 times a week. And then he suddenly seemed a lot happier and healthier and more fulfilled than when he had a complete retirement. So that's when I thought, I think we are onto something here. It seems like there is a combination of purposeful work, the flexibility of work, and being able to keep active that really keeps people healthy and happy. And that's how my co-founder and I decided that, hey, let's try to be the ones to knock down the walls of ageism and, change the narrative of how senior professionals can contribute to the workforce.
That is a truly inspiring story there. Well, Kai Ning, what do you see as the biggest challenges, seniors face when trying to find meaningful employment?
As I mentioned just now, it really takes two hands to clap. I feel like there are both systemic barriers as well as personal challenges, and both parties need to be responsible. Companies, I feel, struggle with what to leverage and how to leverage seniors. So, for example, our seniors of the present, they are really quite different from the seniors 20 years ago, right? They are a lot more educated, they have a lot of rich corporate experience, and some of them have a lot to contribute. They could be managers, directors, or even C-level executives in their past life. And currently, people like to say that 60s is the new 40s. However, I think society's notion remain quite fixed, on engaging seniors for things like admin or F&B. So it's quite like a narrow range of what we believe seniors can do, and that's a narrative that we're trying to shift. And I think another struggle we see is that, organizations don't really know how to leverage senior professionals. So hiring managers sometimes they think, would I be able to manage somebody older than me and more experienced, and how would I know that he or she is good? And how can I know that they can adapt to my team, right? And I once spoke to a community member in her late 50s, so it's very interesting. She was a business leader. And she told me that, when she was a hiring manager in her 30s, she also turned away seniors who applied to her team because she thought that, she thought that they couldn't adjust to the younger team culture. So I was like, but at this stage of her life, she said that her opinion has changed, right, of course, and she still feels very adaptable and gets along well with younger teammates. So it kind of intrigued me, because seniors in their own past lives, right, would not have hired themselves as well, right? So it's quite poignant because the decisions that we make today really affect the type of world that we live in future as well.
Yeah. It's time to change the perspective of everyone here. Well, how exactly does the Courage Chapter then address these challenges that you spoke about? How exactly does it work?
Yeah, so I think at this juncture of business, advocacy work is really one of the key pieces of the career chapter, because as we work with more progressive companies, we write about the best practices and use cases of senior expertise, right? So we try to inspire other companies to come on board and then also educate them on how to best leverage this talent pool. And I think it really takes a lot of courage for both parties to try it out. We really aim to de-risk the experience for both parties as much as possible. So we are running these things called returnship programs, where seniors come into the companies to plug talent gaps. And these programs are usually 3 to 6 months long, and they are extendable only if both parties find benefits in working with each other. So I think it's a little bit of a win-win, because companies then don't need to commit to hiring permanent talent, right? And it's de-risk. And seniors who are at this life stage may not also be looking for long-term commitment. So it's a win-win. And finally, I think that for companies to trust us, the fundamental is that we have to present them top-tier talent. So both in skill set and mindset. In my team, we call it the willingness and the ability to meet project needs. And the fundamentals is that our community members, we want to look out for people with the heart to give back, the willingness to learn and try new things, and the agility to adapt to change.
I see. Well, tell us about the process, though, of matching these seniors with project-based or fractional consulting roles, and how do you ensure it's a good fit for both the talent and the organizations?
Yeah, so we have currently built a community of more than 600 seniors, and there are different ways of matching, right? The most conventional is that of a headhunting firm. So companies come to us with relevant projects, and we recommend our community members that fit the bill. But there are other more progressive methods that some companies have onboarded with us. We call that the reverse search model. So we help companies to run employer branding info sessions to promote their company and attract like-minded seniors who wish to contribute. So after the people apply, the business leaders will read through the curated list of experienced professionals, and then they think to themselves, how can I leverage these people to plug talent gaps in my organization? So it may even inspire the business leader to create a new project just for the senior. And then an analogy can be like, sometimes you're shopping on Lazada, right? When you chance upon an item that you didn't even realize that you needed, but you say, hey, actually I needed this thing. Yeah, so that is the mindset shift we wanted to have on how do we hire seniors. Rather than bringing the person to the role, like trying to force fit the person to fit a role, how can we fit the role to fit the person? So these are just some kind of innovative things that we're thinking about.
I see. Well, what do you think then is the most important quality senior professionals can bring to the modern workforce, especially in a rapidly evolving job market?
Yeah, I think it's really the ability to navigate complexity, right? Because I think young professionals, we have quite a lot of gumption to explore new opportunities, and we do have good grasp on new technology, but the older workers help us to balance out because they avoid the common pitfalls that happen, right? And I think because they have worked and overcome a lot more setback in the past, older team members can really understand how businesses can operate, from like first principles, right? And even in a rapidly evolving job market, I think it's still very relevant. I think one very good example is my own team. So both my co-founder and I are in our early 30s, and we have team members in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. So it wasn't really intentional. It was a happy coincidence. And it really amazes me that the difference in perspectives that they bring to the table. They really help me see my blind spots and provide me strategic advice and coach me on how to work with senior stakeholders.
I see. Well, I'm sure because, you've worked with a lot of senior professionals here. So what feedback have you received from senior professionals who have worked with the Courage chapter? How has it impacted their lives and careers? Is there any memorable stories that, still resonate with you?
Yeah, for sure. We helped to place a professional into a procurement project. And he told me that, after a couple of days of working, he said that, hey, I feel a lot happier and more useful. So it's interesting that she used the word useful. He felt that she could share her experience with younger teammates and also learn new skills. And another professional, we really helped him to accelerate his coaching journey. So he used to be an ex-HR professional, and then he wanted to transition into coaching. And he has now since signed a second year of engagement with our clients, and he's even been flown to multiple countries and coached like their global teams as well. And I think like beyond the actual placements themselves, Courage to represents really a sense of hope I think, for senior professionals, because I think many of them come to us and thank us for the service. I think primarily because we help them to feel heard and seen and offer them a means of dignified work.
Well, I'm sure those stories are the reasons why you keep going and growing the Courage chapter. So as the Courage chapter grows, what are, the key challenges you think in scaling this type of initiative to a broader audience?
I think that's a very interesting question. I may not really have a full answer because we are always learning something new about the industry every day. But I think one foreseeable challenge is that unlike fresh graduates, right, who are quite homogeneous and they can find homogeneous roles, our senior professionals have quite rich and unique experiences. So the question for us is, how can we then balance that customization with skill? But I think with the help of some AI tools right now, right, we can rescope projects and find best fitting profiles more efficiently. So it might still be possible. And I think fractional work is still quite a novelty in Singapore. And as it gains traction, I think it will also open the eyes of companies to start small and scale engagement only if they find value and minimize risk. One last thing is also that one reason why we could gain some initial traction is because the heart and the personal touch that we founders brought to the table. But as we scale, then the question is, how can we still keep close and personal to our community? We don't ever want the Courage chapter to become transactional business. We want our people to feel our sincerity and support, no matter the size we grow. So I think that's just some questions I have in mind.
I see. Well, on this topic, though, what do you think is the biggest, misconception about senior professionals that you would like to address?
Now, the biggest misconception of senior professionals, I think it is that the fact that people think that the senior professionals are not agile and able to learn. I think that is a big misconception because a lot of times they have a lot of experience, right? So there's this thing we call the fluid intelligence versus crystallized intelligence. So this theory really posits that at different life stages, we have different intelligences and we have careers that match our natural cycle. So a lot of times people think that senior professionals, they might be rigid and all that simply because they have a lot of past experiences. But what if we can tap into these experiences and turn it into our advantage instead, right? So I think it's really about how can we leverage different people at different points in their life. And I think our professionals also, they have been through so much setback in the past and they have overcome a lot of things with resilience. So who's to say that they cannot do the same right now, right, in this new model of work?
Right. Well, on that note, though, of course, we can learn so much from these senior professionals, especially given their past experiences. So how do you see the role of mentorship in shaping the success of entrepreneurs, especially those aiming to create socially impactful businesses?
I think mentors and having a like-minded community is super important. I think as a social entrepreneur, there's a lot of times where I feel quite alone and scared in this journey. And I think having mentors who have been in my shoes to share their insights and experiences with me really, really helps. And I think people who believe in us really naturally become our sponsors and they think about me for business opportunities and they become our advocates as well. And the tough love mentors will tell me the truth about my business, but also give me constructive feedback, right, to move ahead. And I even had a long-term mentor who organized events with HR leaders just to help us to raise awareness. So I think it really touched me because she really put her action, where behind her words, right? And I really don't know where we would be without our mentors.
I see. Before we let you go here, Kai Ning, what's next for the Courage chapter? What are your aspirations for the impact it can have on the workforce?
Yeah, so our dream is really for all seniors to have a choice to work, a choice of work, and when to work. And I think really what we are trying to crack here may not only be relevant for seniors, actually. I think the world of work is very fluid now, right? Like young people want to take sabbaticals to pursue their hobbies. Mid-career folks might want to work part-time because they want to spend time with their kids. And then now seniors want to extend their career longevity through meaningful projects. I think all of this really symbolizes a changing perception of work. And I think it's quite exciting for me to be working on new employment models. And I think the wider aspiration is to create an agile workforce, starting with Singapore, that people really feel empowered that they can step in and out of the workforce without any hindrance and depending on their life situation. And my hope is that people can pick up adjacent skills early and be able to then pivot and pursue multiple meaningful stuff, across their careers. And then the final piece is, of course, I hope that the Courage chapter would become a household brand in the next few years.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Kai Ning, for joining me today.
Thank you, Hongbin.
Thank you. That was Kai Ning Lim, who is the co-founder at the Courage chapter. This has been The Right Business with me, Hongbin Jeong.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.